Welcome to Hair What I'm Saying, embracing natural hair in the face of family criticism. I'm your host, Kinetra, and in today's episode, we have an inspiring guest who will share her personal journey and insights into this powerful narrative. Together, we'll explore the challenges, the triumphs, and the cultural significance of reclaiming natural hair within the Black community. Our hope is that through these conversations, we can empower and uplift those who may be going through similar experiences. So plug in your headphones and get ready for an episode filled with resilience, self-discovery, and a celebration of the beauty, authenticity that comes with embracing one's natural hair. Let's get started. Welcome, Arlene. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience growing up with your family.
Yes.
And some of, this is a sensitive topic.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone would be willing and able to be this vulnerable to let us inside of their safe haven.
Agreed.
To share some of the projections our families, it's coming from a place of love, but internally it makes you feel some type of way, right?
Exactly.
So I just want to say thank you so much for being able to be so open to allow us to enter into your safe haven and share some of the criticism that you experienced inside of your household growing up with your family.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I'm going to be doing my best to be respectful of those that were just trying their best, but it's an important conversation to have. And I'm thankful that I have a very loving, supportive, outspoken family. So we're going to see how this goes.
Absolutely. So before we dive into the conversations of your family projecting certain types of criticism onto you about how they feel about how you wear your hair,
mm-hmm.
It's important for us to revisit the past and ask you, have you always been natural?
I have not always been natural. It was a decision that I made for myself once I found out that I was pregnant. And
okay,
for me, it just kind of felt like I really need to come into my own, especially if I'm about to bring life into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been overly confident about my hair. So for me, it was just a nice excuse for like a good transition. So it's been probably about 4.5, almost 5 years now.
Okay. So you haven't always been natural. So that means at one point you were receiving relaxers.
Yes. I would say it probably started somewhere in elementary school.
Do you remember the age?
I want to say probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
Pretty early.
Do you remember why you were receiving the relaxers or even understand what it was that you were receiving?
It was more comments from my mom as far as your hair is just, too thick. It's hard to manage. We need to fix it. So very early, just feeling like there's something wrong with my hair to where it needs to be fixed to be manageable for others was kind of my first introduction.
Yeah, when you said fixed, I was like, well, what was the problem?
Right, exactly. What needs to be fixed? This is how it's going out of my head.
Nothing needs to be fixed.
Right.
It's just that mom is looking for some convenience, yes. Probably because, natural curly hair definitely don't need to be fixed. But that's one of those unintentional projections, know what I'm saying?
Very much so. And it really wasn't until I was older learning some more about her journey with her own hair. And I think her hair is just kind of naturally more thin. It was like a light sandy brown. And being around others that had more thick, coarse hair and just being like, well, my hair is kind of easier to manage. I don't know how you even manage that. So
right.
Sometimes it was like maybe it was just a projection onto me that my hair was different and then somehow not as manageable.
Yes. Because you have to understand where is that coming from.
Exactly.
And I feel as though after listening to you say that, it's like, I don't have to go through all this with my hair.
Very much so.
Right? So I need to find a way to make it so that I don't have to go through all this, trying to upkeep and manage your hair.
Exactly. It's like, it's not what I'm used to. So, we tend to gravitate towards what we're used to, what is easier for us.
Absolutely.
And you can make, all sorts of excuses and project onto others. But, sometimes that's what it comes down to. I'm not familiar. I'm not used to it. So, let me get it to a place that I know I can work with this.
And be familiar with.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So you were probably around 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
Were these relaxers consistently in your regimen from the first time that you received one?
Yes, I would say maybe once a month. I also remember, this is probably aging myself, but I very much remember the hot comb as well. So when it was like maybe a break from the chemical relaxer, but we need to get them edges together, whether it was for church or anything else.
Right.
And, the literal hot comb on the stove,
right?
Getting ears burned, all of those things. So, yeah, I would definitely say it was probably like once a month where it was a chemical, perm relaxer. And yeah, it kind of just continued on.
Well, were your relaxers done at home?
Yes. They were done at home from the box.
Which one? Just for me?
Yep.
PCJ?
I was a Just For Me girl.
You remember the cassette that used to come in a Just For Me? Did you ever play the cassette?
No, but I
Girl, Arlene, you don't remember the song?
I don't. I remember the commercials. Like, see, I wish I could remember the jingle, but no, I just remember being like, oh, I'm a big girl now because I moved to like olive oil when I was older, and I'm like, yeah, it's
seriously, right? Oh my gosh, you just literally made me remember feeling the same way. Like, I don't get the kitty relaxers no more, baby. I'm getting olive oil, ORS.
Yep.
What was the other one called? Why am I getting so excited?
I'm like, I just remember that green box feeling like, oh, I'm a woman now.
Optimum Care.
It was a prize. Oh,
Optimum Care was mine. That was the one I graduated to.
Yep.
OMG. But girl, I used to be so excited like to get that Just For Me relaxer. Girl, I would play that cassette and the song was
I don't know the rest.
It was like no chemical relaxer free. No, what?
I don't know. But I think I can't remember where it was, some social media channel where some of those, models and everything talk about, I never had a
wasn't that crazy
a day in my life. And I'm like, see,
girl, literally hot off the press. Hot off the press, and they knew that, girl, they had their hair. They had to had their hair pressed right then and there and went straight into photo shooting and video shooting.
Yep. And it's,
just lying.
Oh, lies. Lies
girl.
You told. 'Cause my hair never looked like the, pictures on the box. That was never my experience.
And didn't you realize too, like if you go back, if you can recall those models on the box, it was like some texture still in that hair.
Yeah.
You could see texture, and it was like their hair was always still a little thicker, like a little coarser.
Exactly.
Than our finish.
Yep. And I think that's why I always looked like, but my hair doesn't look like that. Obviously, hindsight, not knowing the full story, but yeah, it's just all the trickery.
OMG, we have been misled.
Yep.
And we continue to be misled too, girl. It's never gonna stop.
Nope.
So now that you have received your first relaxer, you stated that your mom would relax your hair once a month and in between provide basically like thermal touch-ups with the hot press and comb, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what were some of the style choices your mom would do to your hair now that she has reached this goal of making it more manageable?
Right. I can do your hair now. It was a variety of things. Very much just the regular schmegular plaits, any way she could separate my hair, do a little twist and put those big barrettes on that would pop you in the face. I had a bow box. And
a bow box? Yeah, the bow. Girl.
Out the box.
Ooh, Arlene. Girl, you bring it back so many memories for me. Like, I remember my bow box used to look so skimpy. And then I would go to my friend's house And I'm like, she got all the bows and barrettes and they're so neat and so organized. And I would go home and I would want to recreate that too.
Why mine don't look like that? They got more colors. I'm over here figuring out outfits based on what color bows I have.
Oh my gosh. But let me tell you what my problem was with my bow box. Because I thought I was a beautician back then. Oh. I would be using my bows to style my dolls and lose my bows.
See? I can only imagine. These was for you, not your dolls.
And that's how it was because my mama used to, I'm not buying no more bows.
Yep.
You keep losing them, you gonna listen, deal with what you got.
Exactly. This costs money. But yes, that was definitely a go-to. And then I also remember, and I don't even think it was like braids. It was just like, look, like smaller plaits. But I remember like having beads on the ends with the little foil.
Right. So you could easily slide because we had no bead feeder, baby. Nope. We'd use that foil at the bottom, slide them beads up.
Exactly. And you couldn't tell me nothing. Just go around making noise. Ooh,
I love it.
I thought it was too cute.
So, girl, we had the beads, the plaids.
Oh, and then twists.
And
I loved my little half up, half down. And get the little butterfly barrettes that you could put at the end of the twist. And then I would have my hair just down in the back. Yeah, I love that.
Do you remember if your mom used to put the barrettes horizontal or vertical?
Ooh, I think horizontal.
My mom did too, but I wanted them vertical because it made your hair hang longer.
Yes.
And it created more weight on the plait, so it hung longer.
Yep.
It just created an illusion of longer hair.
Exactly. Which was, that was the standard of beauty.
It was.
That's what we were trying to achieve.
Did your mom ever do zigzag parts?
No,
My mom never did zigzag parts, but I did have a family member that would comb my hair and give me and my cousin the zigzag parts. And I used to be like, oh my goodness. Then I really thought I was legit. Okay.
And I will say at my daycare, shout out to Miss Avon, because in the summertime, and I don't know if daycare still have this, but we had a pool at our daycare. And I remember being so upset.
Pool.
Yes, girl, a pool. And it wasn't even the bougie daycare. Like all of us was in the pool. But
that's dope.
I remember my teacher doing. Well, she wasn't even my teacher at the time, actually. Just one of the teachers recognizing. I understand why her mom doesn't want her to go, in the pool. She doesn't want to mess up her hair. And she would do my hair. I would be able to swim, do whatever, and then she would braid my hair up. I'd be rocking little cornrows. Yes, I love her. Well, she knows. I'm gonna get emotional thinking about it, but she really did. She really did look after all of us.
Girl, community.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, and that's what we lack heavy now. Is community.
Oh, don't get me started.
That's another podcast.
Yes, on the otherisms. You don't wear your hair like this. You ain't really natural. But I'm like, man.
Oh my goodness.
We need to do better, but.
We're touching on that too.
Yep.
We're jumping ahead, but we getting there. So later on in life, as you began to get older, what did your hairstyles advance to? What were the style selections then?
I would say I moved into, one, just wearing tracks. Like for me, that was kind of like the Aaliyah time period.
Yes,
where
indeed.
I'm like, I want my hair falling across my eye.
What? That nice wrap.
Yes. Or some kind of bang, whatever. So it was very much that. So prior to like sew-ins, it was like, the glued in tracks. And then I felt like the next step was sew-ins.
Right.
Just kind of doing those back to back. And then I would say my freshman year of high school is when I started to run track. And, that's a game changer for your hair. Like, ain't nobody trying to do your hair. You sweating stuff out.
Right. I ain't paying for it either.
Exactly. We in Texas. It's hot. So that's when I got exposed to micro braids. And I would say micro braids had me in a chokehold for a very long time.
But still receiving relaxers as well, right?
Yep,
in between.
Relaxers.
Okay. That's interesting because, it really does depend on your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because you saying you resorted to micro braids because of you being an athlete. Mm-hmm. It's no different, from today. Like we will still resort to braids depending on the lifestyle that we have going
go
on.
Vacation. Let me get some braids.
Seriously.
We don't talk too much about the takedown. It's just,
right.
for the moment.
And absolutely. You did micro braids. Is it a reason why you didn't choose anything larger, or why micro braids?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like it might have just been a trend at the time, or maybe seeing others and just, very much the community. Who's doing your hair? Where'd you get your hair done?
The brandy braids.
Exactly. Yeah, like the whole brandy era. So, and then finding someone to do them. So that was just, it's easy. It took forever, but you knew you were going to get a good long wear out of it, and it was kind of worth the time and money that you invested in it.
So did you go to an African braiding shop, or were they American?
I did at first. No disrespect. It was just painful. It took a lot of time. And then I found an American braider. I shouldn't say I found. It was my mother. And I still to this day, I'm not sure how their connection is. But shout out to Miss Dee Dee.
Okay, Miss Dee Dee.
Yes, Miss Dee Dee did my micro braids. Had me looking fresh to death.
Hey.
So, yeah, that was my go-to for a very long time. I want to say pretty much all throughout high school. It was just kind of off and on, probably a mix between like sew-ins and micro braids.
And then also receiving relaxers.
Yep, still receiving relaxers. And then, of course, hindsight, you learn that was, very bad. Like, why are you slapping on a relaxer and then immediately going to get,
so it would be immediately. Yes. So it
maybe like a day or two in between. That's
my gosh. Yep. Did it compromise the integrity of your hair?
I feel like it did.
Okay.
But this is before like really having knowledge of what
absolutely
that even means.
It was normal back then,
exactly. Nobody was talking about that. So this is just what you do. But I feel like later, absolutely. I'm like, I want my hair to breathe.
Right.
I don't want to do anything to it, but still not feeling confident. Like, I think that was the thing, like, just going back to this is what I was used to. Now I'm trying to do something different and not being confident in that decision yet. So then I would say my go-tos were just sew-ins, probably up until the time that I decided to go natural for myself.
And would you get sew-ins with leave out or?
Yeah, so I would say before it was a full sew-in, just kind of being like, I don't want to leave anything out. Because at the time, I think I was even cognizant of like, I'm not trying to break any of my hair off.
Okay.
And if it ain't blending, I know I'm going to be putting heat on it. So, just braid it all up. And then I think just slowly getting more confident of like, or I don't feel like I like the way that looks. So, let's leave some out for it to have a more natural look, and then slowly getting more confident to be like, now I'm just trying to grow my hair so I can wear my own hair and I don't have to spend any more money on, getting sew-in and buying hair and everything else like that.
And this is all in high school, or this is like a progression into adulthood?
Yes, this was progression into adulthood. I would say college.
Okay.
I feel like college was very much me trying to find myself. That was probably a mixture of, not being in your home setting as far as like who you go to get your hair done. Not that I was that far. Shout out to UTSA. But, being far enough to where it's like, okay, now I'm just driving back home to get my hair done. So it wasn't until I found a stylist in San Antonio, which is where I went to school. But still, again, just doing sew-ins, getting relaxers and things like that. So yeah, it just took a really long time to kind of break that habit. But again, it was just about finding that confidence in myself to be like, I want to wear my own hair. It's just like, I don't like my own hair yet.
Okay.
And not knowing why.
Did you ever see a professional to, do any relaxers for you when you were, I'm backing up into like your high school era, middle school era? Did you ever once see a professional?
Yes, I would say somewhere in middle school, maybe not, I don't know, what's middle school? 6, 7, 8?
6, 7, and 8 for most.
Maybe 7th grade is when my mom was kind of like, all right, I'm done doing your hair and I will just take you to, the person that I go to get my hair done with. And that's kind of how it started. And I would say pretty much from then it was always, someone else doing my hair.
Okay. And do you remember what that first appointment was like? Did she give you like an assessment of your hair and say like, this is what we need to do, the new approach or anything, or she just kind of done it?
Yeah, I think just doing it, just kind of being like, maybe whatever my mom kind of filled her in as far as whatever she was trying to achieve and just being like, do that. Or as simple as, we just need you to put a relaxer on it. She can brush her own hair into a ponytail or something by then. But yeah, I think from a styling standpoint, it was very much like, this is just who you go to get a relaxer. And then if you want, some tracks put in or like a sew-in or, depending on how it needs to be styled, allowing her to do that. But it was usually like a dance is coming up or something.
Where, an occasion, like a special occasion, then you would go see a hairstylist.
Yeah, as far as it being styled. But yeah, it was definitely just routine relaxers and then being done.
Okay. Did you see any change in your hair in a good way after you start going to professional, or you just feel like there was none, or it just kind of stayed the same?
I feel like it pretty much stayed the same. Like, okay. I think
was it in good condition back then, if you can recall?
I think it was.
Okay, good.
Honestly, because even now I'll go back and look at pictures and I'm like, man, my hair was, in my opinion, looked healthy.
Good.
It was long. It looked full. And so, I wouldn't say long, but like long to my standards. Then I feel like it was pretty much always like kind of shoulder length. And I think that was, fine, but still just not wearing my hair or not being able to, whether it was like, now we're transitioning to ponytails, just slap a ponytail,
and probably because you became an athlete too, right? Like, yeah, lifestyle changes.
Exactly. Finding that length, for whatever reason, I think was kind of the biggest thing. But yeah, I don't really feel like I noticed a change in the integrity of my hair throughout that time.
Well, shout out to Mama, because she held it down for a long time.
She really did.
Even though she had to do something to find some convenience, she still took care of your hair.
Yes, very much so. And even when my sister came along, like I'm 6 years older than my sister, and I'm sure we'll get more into those stories, but she definitely challenged my mom in a good way as far as how she wanted to wear her hair. But I think as a collective, she was like, oh, I'm, shaping future women, let me, do things that, I think empowered me as far as like going to a salon and learning that. So I think there was probably a transition for her too, kind of realizing her limitations, but also just being like, I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm gonna do what I can or what I think is good, for your hair, and kind of going from there.
Okay. So what inspired you to go back natural?
I would say first is finances. It's very expensive, and me trying to protect all my little coins, knowing that student loans are on their way.
Yes, indeed.
As far as what I was going to have to pay off. So just thinking about ways of like, how can I reduce costs on hair maintenance for one? And then I feel like it was probably around the time where there was a lot of, just folks talking about going natural more.
So what year was this for you?
Gosh,
like 2013, 14. Yeah, that's 13, when I started hearing about it. Yeah,
I was in Virginia at the time, and I think that's the other thing. I've noticed that there are transitions that happen when I'm away from maybe the community that I've been in. So when I lived in Virginia, it was like, you're not in Texas anymore. You don't know a soul out here. What are you going to do with your hair? That's when I was introduced to lace front wigs. So,
OMG, way back then?
Yep. So
girl, wow.
And then just being like, there has to be another way. So outside of finances, and I did, ultimately find someone to do my hair out there, but I just remember wanting to do something different. So going through YouTube University, when you're seeing all these things like, just buy these products and you can do your hair, and me just spending money like I knew what I was doing.
Everybody had their own beauty supply store listening to YouTube University.
I can just recreate all these things, not knowing a lick about, what type of hair I have, what I need to prep it, all of the things. And then seeing like, everyone talking about the big chop and just being like, I don't work too hard for this little length I got. I don't want to start from scratch. But then also being envious of like, oh man, if I, had done it that way, I might be further along by now, or, really getting to figure out what your texture is. So just a lot of that, where it almost felt like, I don't know, for me, it was like guilt and shame. Like I'm at this big old age and I don't know how to do my own hair, but also realizing I'm not the only one, when people are sharing their journeys about going natural. So I think it just gave me the courage to try. And then once I came back to Texas, really just wanting to find a stylist that, understood and cared about, just that natural journey, or it wasn't like a inconvenience, to that stylist to do hair, that was natural. And shout out to Leslie Ward, because she was the first one to introduce me to just going natural and saying like, no, you don't have to do a big chop. Like,
you can transition.
Exactly. That could be faster, but if you're not comfortable with it, like, you don't have to just do, what other people are doing. Like, we can do a slower transition.
Good job, Leslie. Make people feel comfortable.
Exactly. Okay? And that was what was big for me, growing up, when you hear your hair needs to be fixed or, this and that, like, it messes with your confidence. So to have someone be like, no, baby girl, you can do exactly what you want to do. Like, I understand your goals. So, let's start doing that. So that was big for me. And then obviously finding your very talented self. And,
thank you, girl.
The rest is history.
Yes. Okay. All right. So when you decided to go back natural, did you consult with your family and your friends? Because sometimes when we make big decisions like that, you need some different opinions.
Yes.
Just in case you may be feeling a little detached from reality as we think we are.
We're going to talk you out of it.
What? No, seriously. So did you consult? Do you remember the first person you called, or you was just like, I don't care?
Well, it was a mix of I don't care, but thankfully my sister helped me with that. Shout out to the little sisters out there.
Girl, aren't they so rebellious?
Yes.
In a lot of good and bad ways.
I'm telling you. Again, a whole nother podcast. But my sister gave my parents a run for their money when she was in high school.
She was the challenge baby. What they call those babies? The challenge babies?
I don't know, but them second ones, the first one
call is killing me.
And then the second, they're like, those are the No Limit Soldiers.
Girl, what did they say it on that movie, The Peoples? She was like, what can I say? He's my challenge baby. What did she say, girl? Because that boy was giving her the blues. Okay, that's another. Okay. Get back on subject.
Look, when we post this, someone say it in the comments. I know.
Right. Tell us what it is. Them rebellious ones.
Right. But it was so nice to, see her challenge my parents, because it was definitely in a way that I never had, especially my mom. Where she was like, no, I don't want a sew-in. I don't want to get braids. I want to wear my own hair. I will go cut my hair. And it was very much like, you better not, you're still under our roof type thing.
Right.
And then one day she just went and did it. And the world did not end.
Because don't they act like it's going to end, girl?
The world did not end. She had it styled. It looked great. And I just remember being like, number one, dang, I wish I had that kind of courage. But also, just kind of feeling so proud that, she was like, no, this is something I'm not comfortable with doing. Like, why are you making me feel like my hair, is not beautiful, the way it's coming out of my head, or even just styled? Like, why do I have to have it styled in a way that I don't want to, just because my sister did it, or, just because that's what you're used to?
Yeah.
And so I love that. And I think once I made the decision, again, for me, it happened kind of later in life, thinking about, me becoming a mom and just wanting to be more comfortable with my dango self.
Absolutely.
Just kind of remembering that and being like, if my sister had the courage back then to do it, why can't I do the same, knowing that this is something that I really wanted to do? So for me, it wasn't too much consulting anyone, just kind of remembering those times and being like, I can do this, and I can find someone that can help me along this journey, as far as knowing that I know my own limitations, but I'm not going to let that stop me from what I want to do.
Absolutely. What would be some of the comments that your sister would receive from your parents whenever she would reject?
Oh, I mean, just kind of thinking, just things like, it better look presentable, or why do you want to go around looking nappy headed?
Yeah, that nappy headed where it was just dangled around. Like, what in the world?
It's just always there. But I think the biggest takeaway was just, feeling like if you wear your hair in that way, it's not going to look professional. You're not going to be able to get a job. People are going to judge you, and, all these things, which I think is probably more of like, I just want to make sure my child is accepted in this world.
It is. That's all it really is.
Yeah. And so it's like, of course, now that I'm a parent, I kind of understand a little bit of that mentality. But at the time, it just reminded me of like how I felt of saying like, my hair needs to be fixed, or, it's a challenge for me, so we're going to do this. So I think knowing how I felt, I was able to kind of pull her to the side and be like, no, do what you want to do. I know you're going to do it anyway. I obviously know my
But
sister,
I'm going to give you some more, encouragement from this side of the family, because, I'm sure your sister battled back and forth in her head in between her own decision and then theirs. Yep. And then for you to give her the extra, it's like, okay, I'm not doing nothing wrong, because you do feel like you're doing something wrong in those moments whenever you decide to go against your parents' wishes. Exactly. And you're not doing nothing wrong.
It's that, the uncomfortability that comes with going against the grain.
Yeah.
And then, folks being like, on some, I'm going to disown you if you do this type of thing. And what is crazy is we have a whole other side of the family. Shout out to my Mississippi family. That, pretty much has been natural. I think some of them have like dabbled in relaxers, but for the majority, it was very much of like, that'll be their choice maybe when they're 18, like especially for my girl cousins, as far as like what you decide to do with your hair. But in the meantime, nope, we're going to bust out the products. Here's wash day and, all of the things. So I grew up seeing that. And I think partially just being like, man, why can't my mom invest that kind of time? But again, it was just, that just wasn't in her wheelhouse to do.
Right.
So it wasn't a case of like, it can't be done, but we grew up differently, on this side. And
environments are also make you make different decisions as well, because we're talking about Mississippi and then we're talking about Texas. Yeah.
Night and day.
Completely. And one thing I have noticed about parents is they parent from it's like they parent from a mental space of what's going on with them or what went on with them. Not understanding like the generations do change.
Yes.
And they're just not the same as it was when you were growing up, because back then when your mom was probably growing up, they were trying to make us look more European styled, in order.
And the assimilation.
The assimilation. And you do need to wear your hair. That was like it was like a real thing. And it still is to this day. It's like, before these people can even cast any judgment on you, I don't want them to see you with your natural hair. And they don't get to know you are a great fit for the position of the job or whatever it is that you're trying to apply for.
Exactly.
They won't even give you an opportunity just because you want to wear your hair how it naturally coils out of your scalp. And it's a real thing. So it's like you can't even really just say they're coming from a space of just... You don't know what you're talking about, and because they do in a way,
exactly. And it's so funny that you said that, because, now I work in a corporate space in human resources, and, I've seen a lot of that, and that's why we have the Crown Act today, and, all other sorts of stuff.
That's crazy.
Exactly. The fact that things like that need to exist, it really is heartbreaking, and just kind of showing, how far we still need to go. But for me, it's kind of like, I wish we would tap in more to, current generations coming up as far as like how we parent or where we're getting information, because things do change.
Things do change.
It's the children growing up in this world. I feel like that we need to pay attention to as far as where they're coming from and hear them out versus, well, we wouldn't have been rocking that way, back in my day. It's like, well, we're not, back in that day anymore.
Yeah, we come off so matter of fact, based on what we experienced,
Times have changed.
Completely,
I'm
because
thankful for it.
Right, because even with my daughter, whenever she decided she no longer wanted her locks, and I was the parent that was like, well, why don't you let them just grow out? It's like a transition for locks as well. It's like you can just stop receiving retwists and let your new grow come in, and then once the new grow reaches a certain length, then you cut the lock off. And that's a transition way for people who don't want to do a big chop. And that was the way I was trying to encourage her. And she was like, no, I want to cut it off.
Let's go.
Like, I don't want to do what makes you comfortable, ma'am. I want to cut it off,
That part.
And so that was hard for me. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I feel as though if I let her step into her own right now, it's just going to become easier for her as she enter into adulthood. And she can, it creates confidence because her thing was, no, I want to rock a little fro with my hoops. That was her thing. I want to see what I look like.
And I love that you said that. It develops confidence. And I feel like, and I'm sure as unintentioned as it was for my mom, like that was the source of my lack of confidence. Was,
yes, unintentionally.
Yes. And it's like you expect your mom or, whoever you kind of came up with that you were the closest to, kind of give you that battery pack of like, no, you know what? Yes. Do you know, that's great. If you have suggestions or recommendations, like that's one thing, but to like steer someone to feel like a decision that they want to make for themselves or something that they want to do is wrong.
Right.
And, here's all the outside reasons as to why it's wrong versus I love you. I trust your judgment.
Yeah.
If it don't work out, that'll just be a lesson learned.
And like you said, it ain't the end of the world.
No.
It's not the end of the world.
Nothing happened.
Right. Yeah. So it was hard, like to allow her to make that decision. But what I've learned as my children, as they get older, I'm like, I'm not working hard mentally, emotionally as a parent because you will end up doing it when you try to make decisions for them that are not going to hurt them. And so what I do now is I kind of chill when they're like infants and toddlers. I feel like that's when it's okay to be more hands-on and make decisions.
More the job.
Right. But when they become like these sub-teens and these teenagers, like I tell my daughter and my son all the time, you let me know how to parent you.
Right.
I don't know.
A consultant.
Right. I don't really know. And I don't feel like figuring it out either.
Yeah.
So it's like, you let me know where I need to show up more.
Yes.
And where I need to push back. If it's reasonable, I'll work with it. If it's not, then we're going to have to figure it out. Because you don't get to make the final decision. Don't get me wrong. But I'm open to listening and receiving. And then we can just figure out where we can meet each other and find a healthy balance to. I'm not going to leave the complete decision up to my children because, at the end of the day, they still need guidance. Yes. But I'm open to receiving, And
I love that. And I just think in general, those are great skills to have. It's about, communication.
Absolutely.
Voicing, things that you're passionate about or, wanting to be an advocate of. And, at the end of the day, that just prepares them for life.
Like life.
Yep.
Not in one area.
Right.
Life.
Yes. There's always going to be something.
So we have a pretty good observation as far as how mom felt about you, your style choices and your hair. Or basically, she pretty much made those style choices for you. And then your sister came along and was like, nah, we ain't doing it.
Messed all that up.
But I bet it helped your mom become more open-minded too. Different ways of being appreciative of I can do it this way and it's fine,
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what about dad? How does he fit into this equation? Did he ever have any input also in this conversation?
Yeah, I would say not as much, but I think very opinionated. He's, I guess, for folks that really know him, he wouldn't necessarily be described as someone that has little to say.
Okay, so he's pretty open.
Yes, pretty open, very direct. But I think when it came to certain things, not wanting to overstep, so he was kind of like, well, the wife kind of like handled the daughters, but from a presentation, I would say that's where he had opinions of like, if it was, our outfits for school pictures or how our hair was done, kind of similar to the it needs to be fixed, but just kind of being like, I need it to be presentable. But when I realized what presentable meant to him, I feel like was more of that European, standard of beauty as far as like, okay, well, it seems like you like to wear your hair long, then like make sure it's, straight or pressed or. So yeah, I think it was just kind of like an overall what he deemed as like a polish and just being, I don't know, it was like having a sense of pride of like, here's my, bright and shiny family type thing. I think that was the most important. So I can't say that it was like a lot of opinions as far as like, relaxers going natural or not. I don't think honestly he could tell the difference because there's been times even at my adult age where I'm just wearing my hair and he's like, oh, you got a nice sew-in today. And I'm like, sir,
this is my hair.
So, and whether he says that like in jest or to be funny, that's one thing. But I honestly don't think he knew the difference. I think it was just more of like what he deemed to be presentable, that better be how we represent him in the family.
Did you ever hear any derogatory comments like from anyone in the family?
I mean, the whole nappy-headed thing
Mm-hmm.
was definitely.
So what would it be like? Like, give us like a statement, like, oh, your hair is like, tell us like, how would that be?
For me, I would say it would be like maybe, a period of time where it's been a long time since I've gotten a relaxer, new growth is coming in. I'm just rolling out of bed, it's early in the morning. I ain't, done anything to quote unquote look presentable.
Yes,
And
indeed.
just walking out of the room, trying to grab breakfast or whatever. And just the comments of like, well, I'm thinking of a particular story, but it's like,
come on, tell it.
Jumping up, like pretending to be scared and just being like, oh, who are you? Like, to know my family is to know like sarcasm is our first language. So all of that, but it's like when you're constantly like the butt end of the joke, it's like, I get it. Like deep down, you're like, why don't you like do your hair before you come out and mingle with the family?
It's early in the morning.
Exactly. So to me, that was just annoying. And I wasn't really like wrapping my hair up, doing all the things that we do now. So it was just kind of like, aren't you supposed to be comfortable in your own home? Like, you're making me feel uncomfortable. We tend to hide our pain through jokes. So I would give it like right back at him. He's a bigger guy. And I'd be like, shouldn't you put that biscuit down? Like,
girl, no, you didn't.
Talking about me. But that's just how, we gave it to each other.
Whoo, girl, what'd he say after that? What'd he say?
He honestly laughed. Like, I'm telling you, like, humor, sarcasm, like, that was truly our love language. But, all jokes aside, I just think that he didn't realize the impact that he was having on me because, for me, my father was also my first love. So wanting that acceptance, to feel beautiful. So, yeah, a lot going into that. But I think it also helped kind of prepare me for the world, too, because it was like, no one could say anything to me that,
you hadn't already heard.
I hadn't already heard.
Right.
So there was confidence in that. But again,
absolutely,
for me, I had to find it internally for myself. Like, how do I want to look? How do I want to wear my hair, regardless of the criticism or, who had something to say, and being okay to sit within that too.
Yeah. And I've heard that before, like from different clients that I've serviced behind a chair, when we share these stories with each other. And that is something like Black families do. Like, I just got up.
Yep.
Or I just walked in from practice. Right. I'm not supposed to look presentable.
Exactly. Like, what is your expectation?
Right. Exactly. You want me to get up, get dressed, come down, eat breakfast, then I gotta go back upstairs and rebrush my teeth. Like I don't know.
Yeah. And for me, it was very weird because it was very clear to my sister and I that my father wanted boys. Like, he has a mix of brothers and sisters, so we were very much tomboys. Any sport, like, he loved that we were so competitive, in that regard. But then, in the same token, he was like, I need y'all to act more like ladies and look this way and all of these things. And sometimes it's kind of like, well, which is it?
Right.
But also, like, I'm just me. Like, I can be all of these things.
Right. And not on your watch.
Exactly.
When they need to be. Yes. That's when I'll show up for these different hats that I have to wear.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Oh, man. I know when I was growing up, I didn't really receive a lot. So whenever I do hear these conversations, I'm like, man, did they pay attention?
I wasn't giving enough attention.
Right. Like, was I giving any attention to? But I know, like, with my mom, she was really good with doing hair. So relaxers was not, she actually was the opposite of what I hear all the time. Nice. It was like, no, I'm not relaxing your hair. And the whole family was like, no, you're not getting a relaxer. From my grandmother, my great aunt, like, nobody wanted us to get relaxers because everybody could do hair.
Yep.
So
they were smart.
Girl, so I don't know if it's smart, but they just were just anti-relaxer, and we were the ones like, I want my hair straight, And not even to look more European style at all. It was just that I want to see some length.
Yeah.
You know, what I see when girls at school that are getting relaxers, because you could go and get the hot comb press, but it was so greasy and so stiff and it had no movement. And, you know, and it would just flow so effortlessly. So it was a different type of straight.
Yeah.
Which is why you wanted that relaxer, you know? And so
everyone always it's always that the way you rock your hair, someone else like wishes they could do that.
Right.
But you're over here yearning for like something else. Like, you know, it's I'm never satisfied.
I'm never satisfied. No, seriously, because even with my clients today, like I had this one client, I mean, this is my thing. If your hair is healthy, you have good hair.
Right.
That's my thing. That's my motto. I don't be stuck on no one's texture or anything like that. And you'd be surprised. There are so many, I don't even want to say pros and cons, but there's so much convenience and so much inconvenience. There we go. Inconvenience in all textures.
Yes.
You know, not just one, which is, you know, the one that gets the most is that the kinky texture.
Yes.
And that's the texture I prefer to work with because it behaves.
Yep. They tell it what to do.
It behaves. I don't have to, that hair don't fight me, you know. And most stylists love that texture too, but people who have this texture, they don't. And it's simply because they don't know what to do with it, you know. But I said it all to say, it's just so interesting listening to the stories from other people because I received the complete opposite growing up. And I'm so intrigued from listening to y'all share because me and my sister, we didn't go through none of this. You know, my mom's main concern, my grandmother's main concern was it needs to be combed.
Right.
It's nothing wrong with your hair, but if you leave this house, comb your hair. It better be combed. It better be presentable. And that came in different types of ways, whether we wore cornrow with braids, whether we had box braids. We didn't really wear weaves until we got grown. I think my first weave, I was like 24, 25 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but we did wear braids. And we could wear it natural, relaxed. It just need to be combed. So when I hear it, y'all, I'm like, dang.
Well,
you know, it's so different.
Exactly. And, you know, there's good and bad attention.
Yeah.
So you know, I feel like I'm thankful for your journey because I think that's part of the reason why you are so compassionate and can connect with people as far as, you know, making them feel beautiful. Or, you know, that your natural hair is beautiful because I think had you have maybe grown up a different way, you know, you probably could relate too closely, you know.
Yeah, and also keep you in that place, you know, mentally and emotionally unhealthy with your hair. Because one of my brides did tell me, like, she's transitioning currently right now. Beautiful hair. And she showed me pictures of her relaxed hair, and it was like almost waist length.
Oh, goodness.
So, and even that too, like that's a whole nother podcast about relaxers and how they damage your hair and it don't grow. That's a whole nother podcast. We're not going to get into that. But yeah, she had long, healthy, relaxed hair, but she just decided she just don't want to do relaxers no more. But her stylist was preventing her from transitioning. What? And telling her you have bad hair, it won't work out.
And how was she preventing?
Girl, telling her that like you have bad hair, your new growth, the way it comes in, it won't work out.
That's terrible.
And she don't even have what I see people in our community view as bad hair, which is the kinkier texture.
Right.
It's loose.
I'm telling you.
So you'd be surprised. Like, I'm like, is she discouraging her because she don't want to deal with the natural hair?
Probably.
Or is it really that you think her hair is bad?
Also probably true. You know, I think, and that's why I honestly think the way I grew up, you know, again, sarcasm being the first language and, you know, sometimes not really talking about your feelings because it's like I'm coming from a place of love, so you should just be able to take anything that I throw at you.
Yep.
I feel like it has made me more cognizant of my words and how, you know, I say things. And I think that, you know, even that situation that you just said, like, people just need to be careful or more mindful of what they are saying.
Delivery.
Yes, especially if someone is expressing to you something that they want to do, because obviously it matters to them. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
they wouldn't have said it.
Consider it.
Yes,
you feel me?
Part,
do you hear what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, consider it, because even with my clients, I listen to the goals, and in order to reach them, they do have to be a little realistic.
Yes.
I literally just received an appointment request from a client who wants to add shape to her curls. So I replied back and asked her for hair pictures of her own hair and the inspiration.
Right.
This client is so connected with the reality of what her hair can and will not do.
Oh.
Because it's literally almost the exact same shape and curl pattern. Because I do receive some pictures where it's like, those are two completely different textures.
Oh, no, we're not here for delusion.
Girl, that part. And you are going to get two different results. I can give you the same haircut, but it's not going to look the same.
Yeah.
So I was just so excited. Like, I was like, I can't wait to do it. Because I don't have to go through the combativeness of.
Exactly. Like, they get it.
Because sometimes you can, like, as a stylist, I do have to be careful with my words.
Right.
Because I don't want the client, what I try to focus on is whenever I do deliver in the consultation, I don't say, well, her curls are looser than yours. Right. Automatically, that sounds like, oh, my hair is nappier than hers. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
That's how they could potentially take it.
Exactly. So what I do is I make sure I focus on my client's hair. And I bring out the beauty in my client's hair opposed to the picture. I make the picture look a hot mess.
There you go.
And then I'd be like, okay, see, your curls, they're very defined. Yeah. And very defined means they're very curly. Instead of like, your curls are tighter. It's just,
you have a way with words. No. I hear what you're saying.
Girl.
And I agree. And I think, obviously I can't speak for everyone, but I feel like that should be the goal. You feeling confident in your hair and feeling like my hair is just as beautiful. Yeah, I might use this photo as a reference or see this person whose hair I wish I had, but just being like, okay, but what can my hair do? And speaking with a like-minded professional to, help you on that journey.
So with your family and receiving some of these comments that can be received as derogatory or criticizing, what were some of your key takeaways from those experiences?
I think for me, it's just being careful with your words because you never know what someone's going through. Like, we talk a lot these days about mental health as if it wasn't a thing back then.
It was just internalized.
Exactly. So, and I think that had already shaped the way I approached my sister when she was kind of rebelling. So like the conversations that I was able to have, knowing my own experience, even though I wasn't the kid to rebel,
right?
I think helped her because in my mind it was like, man, I wish someone advocated for me, during that time if it was something that I didn't necessarily want to do.
Right.
And then even as an adult, I think that's why I'm very much like a girl's girl. Like I am the one that's going to adjust your crown and
yes, you do.
Just how you take care of people. It's like life is hard enough. You don't need to make it harder by being judgmental,
about hair strength.
Yes, about hair.
Hair, girl.
Like I think it just gave me a big picture kind of like sense of be careful with what you say because you don't know the long-term impacts, it could have. Even if someone, gives it to you, right back in that moment,
right?
They could, be taking that, sitting at home with it.
Yeah.
And, you just never know what that trickle down effect is. So I'm just careful.
I feel like too, just listening to you share your story right now, it seems as though even though it could have been received in a not so feel good way. But even those comments that were made, it seemed like you took it and was able to also create some line of confidence somewhere in there.
Yep, absolutely. So,
but
it's kind of like when you feel like the closest people hurt you, you're untouchable to anyone else.
Girl.
Like,
because they're the ones you care about the most. You care about what they think the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So after that, it's kind of like, oh no, there's nothing you could do, nor say. And I feel like that's kind of it could have a toxic spin, because obviously that's not, the trauma response you should have. But I think it definitely helped just prepare me for anything, anything like a naysayer might have. But again, I try to use it for good, as far as like, if I see someone else down, or, if there was a comment, like even in school, I feel like girls get a bad rap for being very catty, which we can be.
Right.
But just always wanting to be that person of like, nah, like, let's talk about it, or just telling them like, don't even worry about it. You gonna graduate. You ain't never gonna see this person again.
That part, girl.
Always trying to give people the big picture, because those are things that helped me kind of, just move forward.
It always feel good to have someone to like advocate and take up for you too.
Absolutely.
Because when you don't, you might start to feel like I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Nobody else is saying anything. No one else is standing up for me in the midst of my little situation.
Exactly.
You start to believe whatever that they're saying is true,
So you're on an island and you're just left to your own thoughts, and however which way they go.
And that's how I feel like, with a lot of Black women in the Black hair community, because we'll find a way to divide ourselves within the Black hair community. We have found ways to divide ourselves, even all the way down to how you wear your hair naturally.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like for you, Arlene, you're natural, but you wear it mostly straight.
Yep.
What do you say to the Black hair community that says you're not natural because you're not wearing it curly?
Nothing, because they ain't paying my bills. They ain't helping me raise my child.
I know that's right. Ain't paying for me to get my hair done.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like really nothing. And to me, that's
I love it.
I could go on a tangent, but
she said nothing.
I'll just, kind of say these things. People's opinion of you is none of your business.
It's not.
that has nothing to do with me. It has more to do with them. And I really wish, and I don't think it's something that's just something that goes on within the Black community by itself. But obviously, since I'm a part of that community, that's what I experience. And there's always this sense of like othering. And I don't know if that harkens back to like slave times, where it's like, you got your house Negroes and the Negroes in the field.
Absolutely do.
It's really crazy to me. It's like focusing on that divide, not realizing we're all slaves.
You're right. Wait a minute. You a top tier slave.
Exactly. So to me, it's just crazy. Like I really don't understand.
But that's where that division came.
Yeah.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. Making the lighter skin feel more superior than the darker skin, because the darker skin were in the fields and the lighter skin were in the house. And it made them feel of seniority.
Exactly.
And so it just stayed that way.
Right.
And then we became racist within our own community by shamming and, casting like all types of negative comments and negativity towards the darker complexion.
Exactly.
It's still there to this day.
It's so well known. Like the biggest thing to, defeat your enemies, get them to, divide amongst themselves and fight amongst themselves. So for me, it's like some age old things like that, and that it's still prevalent today in ways that, we feel like we're creating them, but it's really not. It's just, that mentality that
systematic racism.
But again, another podcast.
That is another podcast, honey.
But that is my response, honey. Like, no.
Yeah, and
nothing to do with me.
And see, for me, like, natural is natural.
Right.
I don't care if it's hair, food.
Right.
That means it has not been altered in any kind of way.
That was my definition.
And a permanent alteration, because you have a physical alteration.
Right.
If I wet your hair, I do your hair.
Oh, yeah.
If I wet your hair, it reverts back. So what we do is a physical change. However, whenever you decide to color your hair, permanent.
Careful now. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings.
I am. But I'm not here to make nobody feel good either. I'm here to state the facts, and facts don't care about your feelings. Ooh. Okay? My thing is, if you are out here coloring your hair, you are not natural, and that is not my opinion. Those are the facts, because you have now chemically altered your hair to be something you were not born with.
Exactly.
And especially speaking only from a permanent, situation. Mm-hmm. You have curly hair, but you are not natural, and it's okay.
Yep, that's exactly what I was gonna say. And you know what? It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Don't
we can have preferences,
right? Don't feel like you're not a part of the black hair movement,
right?
Just because you decided to change the color.
Exactly.
We still love you. We still want you here.
Right.
And I don't like the division with relaxed women.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let's just all come together and appreciate.
Community.
Just have a black hair community.
Yes.
And appreciate that sometimes lifestyles will have a person make a decision on what they need to do, what's best for them. But we need to really just stop this. It's getting out of hand. It's getting ridiculous. There's too many documentaries out here where people are still creating the division when it comes to our hair.
And it only hurts ourselves. I feel like the community is only as strong and as positive as we make it.
That part.
So for me, it's like, what are we doing? What do we want to pass on? Because as history can repeat itself.
Absolutely.
So if we're not making the change and just doing what we're used to, having the same old talking points, saying the same disrespectful, hurtful things, like what do we think the future is going to look like? So
yeah,
it's a shame. I have realized I can't solve the world problems, but I'm going to play my part. And I think that's a big step too. As long as we all, just approach things the way that we would want to. Like, what does that say? Be the change you want to see.
Be the change you want to see,
that's
girl.
That's my motto. Like,
absolutely.
You want different, do different.
Absolutely. When you hear the phrase, I am not my hair, how does that resonate with you? Or does it resonate with you at all?
I would say it does. I think of the song, I believe it was called Video by Kinetra Arlene. Y'all Google it if you ain't never heard it.
Sometimes I comb my hair and sometimes I don't.
But no, I feel like although I have a preference as far as styles that I like, as far as hair, I'm like, I could be bald tomorrow and still need to navigate the earth. So I see it as an accessory. When I think about, people that have things that go on to where they don't have hair and, all of that.
That's
and
true.
How beauty's like tied to hair. And I don't know. I just feel like we need to find things that we connect with internally that make us feel beautiful, not just one thing. So I don't know if I'm answering the question. I just feel like nothing,
you definitely did.
Yeah, it's
absolutely
not tied to hair.
I get quiet when I be hearing gems.
Yeah.
Like I be listening. Yeah. And it's so funny too, because like sometimes I'll be on the phone with family or friends and I'll be quiet and they be like, you still there? I'm like, I'm listening. And I'm like, that just lets you know how a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Because whenever they have the floor and there's nothing being said, they be like, are you still there? Yep. Or you was just like, I don't know if that's enough.
I love that because I know that you listened, or even if we're like messaging back and forth, I'm like, I know she's gonna have a thoughtful response. Some people, or even just like listening and talking. People sometimes listen to respond versus just listening to take in or receiving the message.
And I am receiving because. I feel like too that is some ways of how we do connect in very unhealthy ways with our hair emotionally. Is because we are so focused on it.
Yes.
And not focused on other things. Like you say, internally, that's what really matters. What's going on inside, versus externally. Because a lot of things externally are accessories. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Very much.
You worry about your lungs, your heart,
yes,
your soul.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. Like for me, I don't even know where I sit when it comes to that phrase. I'd be like, I don't know where I am. That's why I be wanting to know other people's perspectives whenever they do hear that phrase, because I have heard more say I am not my hair, and then you hear some say I am my hair. And I'm trying to see, like, just based on my observation, the ones, and I've seen people have, I'll say, a healthier connection with their hair when they say that I am not my hair.
Right.
Opposed to the ones that say I am. But I have seen some that still have a healthy connection with their hair when they say that they are their hair.
Yeah.
And then I've heard, but I've observed the ones that don't.
Yeah.
You know, I've observed. They didn't tell me. I've observed.
Right. And it's funny that you say that, because I feel like there probably is very much a correlation. You know, I think sometimes it's not even a thought when you're comfortable with something. You know,
right.
Maybe you have it in such a, good place.
Or
whatever that is, you know what I mean? Like, I imagine like maybe that is, it's like, it's not even a second thought because, you're so comfortable in your skin.
Maybe. Because I really genuinely don't. I will say I saw a very interesting response from, I don't remember, but this lady was saying that she was her hair. And it was because just based on the African history of, how we communicated with our hair before slavery and all those things. Because she was saying something, I don't know if I don't remember. I don't remember where I got the resource from. And I hate it because I would have loved to drop the gem. But basically stating like those were some of the reasons why they did shave our heads whenever they started mixing up the different tribes.
Oh yeah, you got to strip people from all identity,
absolutely,
their history.
Because she was
got issues now.
Yeah, right. Because she was stating like those different braid patterns was a way that we communicated with each other. Due to, just saying like, oh, she's getting married, or just whatever you are, whatever status that you are, status quo that you are entering in your life at that time, however you wore your hair signified that. And so that was one of the reasons why they cut it off. Or it also signified whatever tribe you belong to,
That's exactly what I was going to say. The tribal aspect, as far as, this region, this is how they wear their hair, so people can kind of identify each other as far as where they come.
Right. Yeah. So that was a very interesting thing. I actually learned that listening to her because I didn't know that, And so
I think when people, and it probably depends on how you're framing that, or even the frame of mind of whoever is answering that question.
Right.
Because you would probably hope that more would think about, more of like the heritage, of that versus, no, it's this whole war against natural versus not. And, we're trying to assimilate into whatever beauty standards going on right now. So I imagine that goes into play a little bit on how people answer that question.
Right. But I feel like everyone is validated in how they feel, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think there's a wrong answer. Like, like I loved your answer too. And I love even the other ones. Even if they say I am my hair and it is a unhealthy connection. I'm not saying that I understand, but I feel like you're not wrong for your feelings. You're entitled to feel however you want to feel about your hair, But I just thought that was so interesting, and I think it's because I also learned in that moment that was a thing. I think that's why the energy for me was like, whoa.
Exactly. And for me, it's kind of sometimes scary. Like, I never want to put so much value on something that I know could like go away.
Fall out.
Yes, something that could happen. Like that to me, I think just freaks me out of like, there should be nothing that I hold my identity to or whatever.
Because it's not committed to you. You know what I'm saying? And before I heard her, drop that gem of, African history with hair, that's how, like, and I still feel that way, like we have to find a place to be emotionally healthy with our hair in the event it do fall out.
Yes.
Because it's not, we're more committed to it than it is to us.
Exactly.
Like
the world will not end.
Right. Like, let's be honest, so you have to arrive in that space one day where it's like, I will not allow myself to only my hair be my identity.
Correct.
In the event of, you know what I'm saying? Do you hear what I'm saying? I got to get so used to saying it.
I love it.
That's why I was like, I love everyone's answer, that I've asked. Yes. Whenever I ask them, that statement, like whenever you hear it, how do you resonate with it? How do you feel about it? Because I guess since I'm still so stuck in the middle, that's why I'm intrigued by anyone's answer, because I don't have my own answer.
Right. It's always good to be a sponge, just hear what everyone else got to say.
Absolutely. And another thing she dropped in that resource too, she was saying like, being that they did mix us all up, even there's different African languages, so they mixed all us up, in different languages, so we couldn't even verbally communicate, like literally, like you said, like they stripped us. She said, in order to learn how to escape from slavery, we would create maps in our heads as braid pattern maps. So that we could escape, girl.
Like not a whole map,
a whole map in the head, and it's
so
like
resourceful.
It was so
resilient,
and I get so mad at ourselves for sleeping on ourselves whenever I think about our ancestors. And I'm like, man, they were built different,
man. Let me tell you. I mean, even not so far, back. Like I don't want to take a political turn, but just some things that we don't participate in that folks like died, bled, over just. And again, I think it just goes back to when we were talking about the divide within the community.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's just exactly what other individuals want as far as, a group of people not realizing their power because they're focused on these minuscule things and not the big picture.
Because it makes you less powerful when you're not moving together, so. And that was the point of the division. And it worked like a charm. It was like Willie Lynch. I think he came up with that friggin' girl, let me tell you, it's still affecting us to this day.
Yep. Like a charm.
So before we wrap up, Arlene, what can you share with Black women or women who are faced with criticizing comments amongst family and friends to help them stay focused on their natural hair journey or hair journey?
I would say build your own community. Pause.
Yes, indeed.
When I think about just my childhood, the influences that I had, how I had to navigate through certain spaces seemingly alone as an adult.
Yes.
Even going back to like toxic family and just being like, what, just because it's family doesn't mean you have to be treated that way
or accept it.
Yeah, you can build your own family and community. So I feel like social media is a blessing and a curse, but the blessing of it is you can seek out community as far as finding like-minded individuals and people that will cheer you on and are thinking the same thing. So I think that's important, especially if you can't find it, within what you want to feel like is your safe space. You can go and create that safe space for yourself.
Absolutely.
And staying true to yourself too. Like there's so many, I just want to hop on this trend, but even if you feel that way, just take a minute and be like, but why?
Right.
Some inner reflection first.
Because it will steer you away from your divine self.
Yes, absolutely. And then look up just being lost.
Absolutely.
I just followed something blindly. And didn't take the time to think about it. Just out there doing stuff.
And then you completely off track from your original goal that you had for yourself, you know. So it is very important to be in tune and connected with your alignment and not everyone else's.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to thank you so much, Arlene, for this was such a great conversation. Yay. I genuinely and thoroughly enjoyed you today, and I'm sure the listeners did too.
I won't quit my day job. But
Yes. If our listeners want to connect with you, can you please share your information on how they can do that?
Well, I will say as far as public social media, it is a challenge because, she's a wannabe corporate baddie out here.
Oh, that part.
But I will say I stay fairly active on IG. So my Instagram handle is MzLean12. That's MZ.LENE12. So you can definitely find me and would love to chat.
And connect and share more stories.
Yes, I like a good story.
Amen. Thank you for tuning in to the Hear What I'm Saying podcast. We hope you've been as inspired as we have by our incredible guests today. We want to remind you that your stories and experiences matter to us. We encourage you to reach out, whether it's to share your own journey or to connect with our guests. Our community is here to support and uplift you. Embrace your unique path, whether you are wearing your hair straight or curly. It's the crown on your head. Know that in doing so, you're not just embracing your hair, but also your heritage, your culture, and your strength. Continue to inspire, uplift, and empower others. Your journey is a beacon of hope and change, and you are never alone on this path. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast and social media to stay connected. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at _hairwhatimsaying_ or visit my website at www.hairwhatimsaying.com. Until next time, peace and many blessings. First and foremost, a huge shout out to our outstanding podcast manager, Sophie. Sophie, you have been an absolute rock star behind the scenes, ensuring every episode runs smoothly and flawlessly. Your dedication, creativity, and attention to detail have elevated this podcast to new heights. To our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Sophie and discover more about her virtual services, you can find her on Instagram at Sophie Virtual Services. Give her a follow and trust me, you won't be disappointed. Next, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to the talented musician who has provided the incredible music that accompanies our podcast, Doo-Wop. Doo-Wop's musical compositions have added depth and atmosphere to our show, making each episode an immersive experience. If you're as captivated by Doo-Wop's work as I am, be sure to check him out on YouTube and Instagram. Give him a follow at Doo-Wop _2.0. His beats and melodies are truly something special.